Welcome to the Growth Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Colin. In today's episode, we have a special guest. His name is John Matthews. He is the president and CEO of Graycat. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing well. Wishing for some rain here in Raleigh, but other than that, I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you get some rain down there. But can you share a bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture over at Graycat?
Yeah, I'm the founder, the president, CEO. I started Graycat in 2004. I'm a management and operational consultant. And the reason why I add that operational consultant at the end is because we actually dive in and do work almost on behalf of my clients. I do strategic planning for clients. I do senior project management for clients, almost like a vice president for hire. And then I actually am an interim leader. I'll either run a division that perhaps they went out and bought, or maybe their chief marketing person walked away and they need to buy some time before they can find a full-time solution. So I fill those gaps.
Gotcha. Awesome. So do you operate somewhat as an M&A advisory? Do you have that experience as well?
Yeah, in my corporate life, I worked at Little Caesars, I worked at Graycat Enterprises, and I worked at Jimmy John's. We were involved in a lot of M&A activity, in particular at Graycat Enterprises. Mm-hmm. So we actually sold our company twice, from one private, or actually there were three private equity firms that owned us when I got there. We sold the company to Blackstone, and then Blackstone wanted to get rid of the retail and hold on to the refining. And so we were asked to sell the retail 18 months later, and we ended up selling to Apollo Management. So I've gone through that process of, putting together the story, the offering memorandum, organizing the due diligence room after the deal closes. And on the flip side, when we were acquiring, going through all of the synergy gaining aspects of every deal that we closed on. And consequently, I've actually done this for a few of my clients as Graycat, where I've actually helped them kind of position themselves to be sold. I've been involved in 4 different transactions, 2 retail and 2 technology companies, believe it or not, as Graycat helping to write the offering memorandum, tell the story, pitch the business, and close the deal.
That's awesome. I would imagine you have a good Rolodex. Yeah. There's people you can just call right up. Hey, I need to get this done.
Yeah, it's I don't exaggerate when I say I've got 8,700 phone numbers in my phone. So it's
Wow.
it's quite a number that I have in there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I guess what does a typical day look like for you? When does someone of leadership or a CEO or founder pull you into the equation?
I start my day the same way every day. I walk 4 miles first out of the gate, and I organize my day, my week, and everything as I do that. I'm either spending time working on client work. I am the A player at the team. I'm the only player at the team. I'm a sole proprietor, and so I run every aspect of the company. So I spend the majority of my time working on client work, and when I have downtime, that's when I promote Graycat or do some business development to set up the next set of clients that will be coming my way. My sales cycle is relatively long. I don't hard sell many folks out there. I'm more of a credibility stater out in the social medias. And when people have seen me over the years, someone will pop up and say, you know what, I've been reading your stuff for 2 or 3, 5 years, and now I finally have a project. And then I bring those folks in, and my engagements can last anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. I've had one go as long as 13 years, as a matter of fact. Oh, wow. And so, my sales cycle is probably a year or 2 out. It's just been a steady pipeline of clients where I carry maybe 3 to 5 clients at a time.
Awesome. So when it comes to clients, what do you typically look for? What's your ICP in terms of your initial customer or client profile? Is there a specific mandate or investment thesis, a criteria when working with certain people, ones you may have to turn away or ones you don't?
They're generally larger in scope. They're also generally moving at a pace that they don't have enough resources to put towards either projects within the company, or they just may not have the right people. And so that's where the interim stuff comes in, where I come in and fill a gap and buy them time to be able to do that. So, private equity firms are great for me to work with because generally they'll go out and buy a company within their portfolio, and maybe they have a CEO that's running 10 stores, or they're in one state, and private equity, they want to move very quickly, and
Yeah.
they kind of go, you know what, let's get this Matthews guy to kind of sit next to our CEO and coach them and tell them what's around the corner when they go from 10 locations to 50 or to 100. I can be their sounding block. I'm not running the company in that situation. I'm just their sounding block and gives them another set of eyes.
Awesome. Okay. And when you say another set of eyes, are you looking into, in terms of like corporate governance, are you looking at all the internal workings, the EBITDA, and seeing, what's wasteful, what's not, and how to improve that EBITDA plus?
Actually, when I do my interim gigs, I get down to the line item detail on the profit and loss statement. I'll go in and question everything, try to figure out why maybe last year they were making money, this year they're not. What are the major things that have caused that? And I look at all the aspects of the profit and loss statement. How do we improve revenues? How do we, expand our gross margin profits? How do we cut back on expenses? And literally, I'm the guy who's looking at it line by line. There aren't a lot of people that actually, when I get to my clients and I go, I found that, in this one situation, I remember this, I counted up the number of phone lines that we had coming into the office, and we were paying for 13, and I could only count 12 phones. And I'm like, why are we paying for 13? And someone said, well, behind that cabinet, we used to have a line that would come in for a fax machine, but we haven't had the fax machine in 5 years. And so I pulled the cabinet out and I looked, and sure enough, that line was active. And so I called the telephone company, and they said, yeah, you've been paying for it for 5 years. We paid $100 a month for that. So $1,200 a year times 5, that's $6,000-$7,000 that no one was even looking at. And so that's the level of detail that I bring to the table. And that's why I throw in, not only am I a management consultant, but I'm an operational consultant. I'm going to be that guy who's in there asking all those silly questions like, why are we paying for this phone line? Or why do we have this lease expense on a piece of equipment that no longer is in our possession?
Yeah. And when it comes to, profit projections and, pro formas, do you get involved with accountants as well and kind of look at the whole matrix of their financials and what's coming in, what's going out in terms of the P&L?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do forecasting, both quarter in advance to the entire year. As a matter of fact, one division that I took over, this was a different division. We had 35 employees that I was now responsible for. And I had a town hall after I met with everybody and gathered up all the good, the bad, and the ugly from those folks. And I put together a plan. And one of the things that I presented to the team was I asked them, I said, who can tell me what our sales goal is for this month? And not a single hand went up. And I said, well, that right there's a problem. Okay, you need to know what we're shooting for. So we instituted what I called a daily flash. So if we were going to do $1 million for the month, every day they would get an update to know how far away are we to that $1 million. And if we were halfway through the month and we were only a quarter of a way to our goal, we knew we had to really create some magic in the last 2 weeks of that month. Well, consequently, once the team started to know what the goal was, they started to work towards that goal. And after a couple of months of that, we hit our goal 13 consecutive months. And they, were ecstatic and my client was ecstatic. Like, we've never even hit our sales goals. Well, it's because no one knew what the sales goal was. There was no way of doing that. So I manifested a way to be able to communicate that to the team so we could actually have targets, achieve those targets, celebrate when we hit those targets, and then continue to make the company grow.
Yeah. And when it comes to the industries that you kind of, look for or want to work with, are you agnostic? I know you mentioned Little Caesars, Jimmy John's in terms of, food and restaurant or hospitality. Is that all you work with, or is there primary targets?
I'm totally industry agnostic. I've worked with convenience stores, food distribution companies. I got a healthcare client right now. I've worked with technology companies, a number of different technology companies. I kind of break it down, Derek, where, everybody's got revenues. Everyone's got expenses. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to improve their margins. Everyone's got cultural issues that you got to manage the people. Everyone's got performance issues. Everyone's got technology. I mean, so you have to kind of keep it at that level, at least in my eyes. I have to understand the product lines and the vernacular of the industries that I go into. But the bottom
Hmm.
line is it's about revenues, it's about expenses, it's about gross margins, it's about building culture, it's about getting the team headed in the same direction.
Yeah. So what major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
The major shift that I see is, well, first of all, there's a lot of people that are out of work all claiming to be consultants. And so that it does cause a little noise in the industry. And so
Yeah.
trying to make sure that people understand that I'm just not one of those fly by night consultants. I've actually been doing this for 2 decades plus. That's probably the biggest challenge. The other challenge is that, I use LinkedIn a lot for prospecting, and I've been on LinkedIn for 21 years. Probably 95% of my business in the last decade has come from LinkedIn. I'm very relationship related, very referral related. I post a lot of content, original content on LinkedIn. And today's LinkedIn, you connect with someone and you immediately got their sales pitch stuffed into your email, and the whole wham, bam, I want the sale type of mentality
Yeah.
is pervasive now on LinkedIn. And so not only are you getting those connections in the sales pitch, but people aren't even taking the time to actually manifest any type of relationship with you. It's kind of like, here's my product. Do you want to buy it or not? There's no prospecting. There's no
Yeah.
understanding what I have, who I am, what's my company, what are my needs, or anything like that. That to me is a challenge for someone who relies on, a platform like LinkedIn, because I'm getting caught up in all that noise. And when you're getting
Yeah.
30 and 40 and 50 emails like that, everyone on LinkedIn is, pretty soon you're numb to it, and you're deleting stuff thinking that it's just all AI driven or something like that. And there are some legitimate people out there that are spending the time trying to get to know you and make the connections.
Yeah. And that's probably what makes it hard for them too, because someone's always seeing that as an angle, right? The traditional means of, outreach where you build a relationship with someone first. People will see, oh, that's just an angle now. And it kind of ruins it because you got all these AI bots and people just sending random direct messages to sell you something without truly trying to understand your business or your organization. You may even get messages that don't even pertain to what you do.
Or dear Jeff. I'm not, no, my name's not Jeff,
Dear
it's
Jeff.
John. All right. you know
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. How has that trend impacted your business or growth strategy?
Unfortunately, I've been a networker all my life. Even in my corporate days, I was a networker. Matter of fact, when I left Little Caesars, it was like in the mid 90s. The internet was just starting basically. And so I literally sent
Yeah.
out 300 letters to people saying, hey, I've left Little Caesars. I'm now the director of marketing over at Clark, and one of my friends actually, she found the letter that I sent out. She called me like 2 years ago and said, never believed this letter that I got that you mailed out to me telling me that you were moving companies. And so it's just a different type of world out there where everything is like, happening tomorrow or yesterday, basically, where before
Yeah.
it was kind of like you would network with people but fortunately I've always been a networker. From that standpoint, I've stayed in touch with people that I've met on planes, that I still stay in touch with 2 and 3 decades later. I may have only met them once on the plane and maybe we met one more time. I know if they see me calling, they're going to pick up the phone, and so you have to spend the time developing those relationships. Even if it's a text or a quick email, it just kind of makes people kind of know that you're out there.
Yeah, definitely. For entrepreneurs that are out there that are listening, I believe that is great advice that you just, provided and insights. But what could you tell them that would help them be better at, during this day and age with the landscape of AI and all that stuff?
Don't just sit back and press buttons. Cultivate some relationships. You don't have to know 8,700 people in my phone. But I do stay in touch with several hundred in my phone. So I am constantly on the outreach. I do know that when I put my original content out on LinkedIn, it's just a reminder that I'm out there to the people that know who I am and that are connected to me. So I think as a young entrepreneur, you have to maintain longer term relationships with people. A lot of times the relationships that I have with the people they don't turn into my clients, but they know someone who is asking them, hey, I need someone who can help me. And you're on top of mind because you've maintained that relationship out there.
Yeah.
They love it because they don't have to go out and vet anyone. They know you. They can be Johnny on the spot with the answer. They can look like a hero to that person asking. When they say, hey, I need someone who can come in and not require a lot of hand holding and run a project for me. And they go, I got John. John Matthews can help you. And now I look like the hero because I came up with a name and here's his name and number. So
Perfect. Yeah. That's always a good thing to have those connections and relationships where you can help each other out and it's more universal because a certain issue or situation or opportunity could arise and you can be like, hey, John is perfect for this. Let me give him a call. Yeah. What's working well for you right now with business and what's been frustrating?
I think we talked about the frustrating part is that
We did.
everything
Yeah.
seems to be becoming commoditized. And the more people that just rely on AI without adding any of their own individual input into that AI, everything's coming out sounding the same. So I think that's the biggest challenge. What's worked for me is, again, I post things that are directly coming out of my brain. I post I write articles for magazines. I've been writing for Convenience Store Decisions magazine for the last 3 years. I have an article every month in there. That keeps me relevant in an industry that I spent, almost 10 years in. I write for an HR magazine as well on leadership and on managing teams and things like that. So that keeps me relevant when it's related to the interim business that I do. And then the constant new content that I put out there just keeps me relevant with a lot of people that I'm connected with that eventually will either say, you know what, we need a speaker for our event, or John could be great to be the interim person. Because a lot of times those interim gigs, you don't have much warning. If your chief marketing officer leaves tomorrow, guess what? You need someone in there running it like the next day. And I can't tell you how many times I've been contacted saying, could you possibly start on Monday? This is a Thursday, so can you start on Monday? And I said, let me see if I can move a few things around, because they're not bringing you in to be the interim person and giving you like 3 months lead time to it. Usually there's an emergency situation. Someone left the company on their own, or they've been asked to leave. And now there's a gap and they don't have time. They haven't even gone out to hire the recruiter to go find it, let alone hire the person. That's where you just got to be kind of Johnny on the spot and top of mind.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you want people to know, or owners of established companies to know about Graycat if they were to seek you out for your help?
Well, if you go back to my corporate days, at Little Caesars, I started in operations as an operational manager trainee, believe it or not. And then 5 years later, I was the national marketing director, and I had 1,600 Little Caesars stores that I was in charge of from a marketing perspective. At Clark, I headed up 5 different divisions for a $3 billion company. So I went in as a marketing person. Next thing you know, I'm running a $900 million merchandising division. I was the company spokesperson, and I handled all the corporate communications for the company. And then the CEO and COO gave me facilities management. So I had 1,400 properties. I was in charge of construction, repair and maintenance, environmental, purchasing. And then they gave me 1,400 properties as the head of real estate, all at the same time. So I had 1,400 properties, some of which we owned, some of which we leased, and everything like that. I headed up the capital committee there. I headed up the IT committee there. So any IT project had to go through my committee. And then I went over to Jimmy John's and became president of Jimmy John's, where I had all of that stuff, and chief operating officer over there. So long-winded. What they would expect from John Matthews is that I'm going to bring not only marketing expertise, operations expertise, but all these other areas to the table. So you get one-stop shop, and you're going to get a guy that's comfortable in leading projects without a lot of hand-holding, and he will take it to a level. either down to the P&L level or down to the nth degree level, in trying to figure out and put together the puzzle pieces that you just threw at me. You just brought the jigsaw puzzle in, you threw it on my desk, and I'm going to figure out how to do that. And the examples are when I went to work for Global Partners, which was a huge oil, transportation, and convenience store chain in Boston. They brought me on for 90 days to do a coffee program for them. And then once they found out my background a little bit more in detail, they put me on annual retainers for the next 3 years. So I was with them for 42 months and I did 11 different projects for them.
Oh, wow.
Deluxe was another example. They brought me on for 6 months to run a division. And then 13 years later, I'm still working with Deluxe and I'm doing multiple projects. I've run 7 different divisions for them. I've run an inventory project, an accounts receivable project for them, a gross margin project for them. So these companies will end up hiring Graycat and they kind of go, wow, the guy's got a lot of depth and he's got a lot of breadth. And we could keep him around because we got a lot of projects.
Awesome. So where do you want, Graycat to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now? Are you expanding? Are you looking to take on more projects?
Right now I'm in a great position, Derek. I've been doing this for a long time. I've had a great C-suite, corporate life as well. I'm quite comfortable where Graycat's at. I got great balance in my life and I really enjoy the balance. I'm a big gardener. I'm a golfer. I got a boat and everything. So I like to play a lot, but I get tired of that. And I like to sit in my office and do podcasts or do work for my clients or do whatever. And then I get tired of that. I like to go out and dig some holes. So as long as I can maintain that balance, I'm perfectly happy.
Yeah. And you got to take care of that cat, right?
I got to take care of the cat. That cat's gone a long time ago, but there's a new cat. So.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that the goal is to, just kind of, you have a work-life balance now to where you kind of take time for yourself and maybe you'll do podcasts and you're just quite comfortable where you're at with the business. So if you had like a magic wand to fix one thing in your business, what would that be that's holding you back?
Yeah, the one thing that is kind of surprising to me is I have a website called GrayCatEnterprises.com, Gray catenterprises.com. There's a ton of stuff on it. All my blogs are on there, podcast clips, case studies, all my clients, speaking, information. And then 2 years ago, I added this thing called the Graycat Learning Series. So if you're a single store operator in Des Moines, Iowa, and you don't know Graycat at all, but you know what, you'd like to kind of tap into Graycat's mind because you're not going to be able to hire me to do a project for you. For $99, you can take a course on how to improve your profit and loss statement, how to better market your store locally around the 3-mile radius that your store sits, how to put together a business plan. I've got 15 online courses that are available. They're all pre-recorded that someone can actually just go to my website and they can buy the courses. I don't get a lot of traction from individuals out there, probably because, if they're not on LinkedIn, they may not know about it because I don't do much in the way of advertising. I do get businesses, though, that reach out to me, larger companies saying, hey, we saw that you got this learning series. Would you put together a program for all of our managers over the course of a year? So I get a lot of traction that way. Where I would think it'd be great, much like I have 3 books on Amazon. It's nice that people buy these books every month, and I'm not even putting forth a lot of effort to push the books. I get a check every month from the books. It's like a little royalty. I don't have to manage the inventory. Amazon takes care of all that. It would be great to have people find this learning series. The information in it is gold. I mean, for $100, you're going to get far more value than what you're paying for that $100. I guarantee that you're going to save at least $100 on your P&L by going through that P&L course or getting a couple ideas on the marketing. So if I could get traction there and get more mailbox money coming in from that and help people along the way and help them tap into that, that would be terrific.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us on the Growth Xperts Podcast. It's been a pleasure. John Matthews, ladies and gentlemen. And if you want to check out his website, you can go to GrayCatEnterprises.com. That's GrayCatEnterprises.com. John, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Derek.